Hey, Charlie, thanks for doing this interview with us. I asked you to come in here because I really remember working with you along the way, and just as you stepped into my classes, just how dysregulated that you were. There was a lot of stuff going on. Your kids were pulling back. Your ex was putting a lot of pressure on you with accusations that weren't accurate and telling your boys things that weren't, and it really had you up in arms. Do you remember those times?
Yeah, unfortunately, it was. It's good to be able to reflect back on that and get a chuckle out of it. But at the time, I mean, my whole world collapsed, and I just, I didn't know what to do. I had talked to attorneys, and they're not affordable to talk to glean advice. And it's funny because your name came up multiple times from multiple sources, and I kept thinking, Brooke Olson. And I looked at your website. I think I called. You were close, which was nice. But when I finally connected with you over the phone, and we had our consultation, I mean, it was almost just like the light was on. Like, hey, this is what we need to do. So
So I think the thing that I saw the most with you was your sense that you were losing contact with your boys, that they were pulling back, and that there was a real panic in you in terms of losing that connection. And I think that was the piece that we worked on the most here.
yeah, 100%. Before their mom and I split, I was involved with them. I went to every class function, every school function, coached the Little League. Um, and they have an older brother and sister that I did the same thing with. So I was a very involved parent. And when their mom and I split, all these lies came out that I was a bad dad, that I was uninvolved and detached, which was the farthest thing from the truth. And watching my little guy's eyes just get distant and seeing them push back, which they were being fed a lot of BS. It was literally like drowning. Like I didn't know what to do. I mean, all I wanted to do was just to like let them know, like, hey, I'm your dad. So with you working with me, kind of putting some plans of action together, really helped. And one thing that did lead to our reconnecting was bringing them involved, taking a weekend trip, having them plan the trip, and on that specific trip, they were able to drop their guard, and we did reconnect. And our connection from that time to today has never been broken. The trust has never been I don't want to say violated, or the trust has never been broken. And because of that, I owe it to you because, you know, carpenters go to work and they use their tools. When things are up here and down here, you need the right person, you need the right tool, and you provided that. And for that, man, I thank you, and in time, my boys will thank you.
So often with my clients when they come in, there's this sense of having to really take on every accusation, defend every piece of email that comes through, and you were no exception to that. There was a high level of activation, a lot of anger in what was coming your way. I mean, obviously the piece of potentially losing the contact with your boys, but the onslaught of going against who you really were or are as a dad had you kind of wrapped around the axle a little bit. In that period of time, remembering what was going on with you, what were we doing in our classes and in our consults that really helped you come out of that piece?
So, yeah, I mean, again, being able to kind of chuckle about this, I never in the lifetime would have thought I would have been able to. But The allegations were outrageous. The anxiety level that I had because of the amount of content that was being placed on social media, being told to family, being told to friends, the emails that were going, the letters that were being written to court. It's just like the shotgun approach on their side was off the charts. And for me, in defensive mode, trying to make sure everybody understands, I was going I was torn in a million different ways. And getting with you and working with you, you had mentioned this thing called parallel parenting, and I'm like, well, okay, what the hell is this? And when you explained in detail how it works out, where you don't react to every email, you don't react to every emotion, you treat everything as it needs to be treated, and more or less compartmentalize what needs to be addressed and let all the other stuff go. And that really, really resonated with me, not only in her and I communications, but also with the boys. And then surprisingly in court, the way that the judge reacted to the fact of parallel parenting, and he wasn't completely aware of it. And so when I explained what it was, I think he was pretty impressed the fact that, putting forth the effort and actually utilizing tools that worked to disengage a situation was pretty helpful. I mean, it was helpful, not pretty.
So, Charlie, you said that it helped your boys, that parallel parenting model helped your boys. Can you expound on that just a little bit?
Yeah, so a prime example would be their mom would say something outrageous. And of this huge outrageous statement, there was probably a fraction of the truth. And so by not addressing the exaggeration and addressing that small bit of truth and pointing that out to them, I think not only helped them realize oh, okay, well, that makes sense then. I don't know why it had to be that big of a story. And it just it gives them something to digest and understand. And over time, they do see and know who their mom is. And there's just a history of things being very dramatic when they don't need to be. I think it gave them the tools to deal with it in the same manner.
So I think a little bit of what I heard there, Charlie, is that in the communications with your kids, you eliminated a lot of the anxiety and the inaccuracies in that by not having those conversations to a large extent. But when you did have those conversations, engaging in some sense making or some cognitive process with them, some common sense making of what was your experience or how do you really see that, so they could manage that. Is that accurate in there at all?
It's 100% truthful. Yeah, I mean, there's I don't know if you want me to get into a circumstance, but during COVID, they had a sister who had COVID, and I reached out and I said, hey, I don't think the boys should go home unless you have a proper protocol to take care of the boys and make sure that they're away from her. And with that, I was threatened that I was going to go back to court. The police were going to be called. They were going to come take the boys. And it just was a huge ordeal. And I said, look, I know it's a weekend, but I'll give you the next weekend. I'll just extend our time. It's not a problem. And I think they saw firsthand at that point where they didn't want to go back. They didn't want to get COVID. They didn't want to deal with this, but it was just this big dramatic explosion of things that never really had to happen. And that's one in many that they realized, we sat down and talked about it. I'm like, your sister's sick. She has COVID. You're here. We don't have COVID. The police showed up, which really freaked them out. And long story short, we went to court and the judge admonished her for not only wasting the court's time, but my time as well. So not to give you a long drawn out story, but that's one example of how a completely blown out of proportion situation could be honed into the details, and they see that firsthand.
Yeah, this is the benefit, Charlie, isn't it, of really understanding that once you've got the bigger picture of how to stay regulated yourself, and modeling just the problem solving pieces of the high conflict interaction with the other parent, that has a huge bleed over into how the children are able to stay regulated. This is that notion, I think, of when a parent's regulated, when a parent has the lay of the land and doesn't get drawn into the crazy making, that the kids have a safe spot. And I think as I watched you go through this process, you were able to make these shifts remarkably quickly.
Oh, thanks. Well, it was because of your advice, and I had an exceptional attorney. I had two. But yeah, it was because of spending the time and adhering to what you were suggesting to do. I mean, by profession, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a lawyer. And if I need that, I depend 100% on that. And you are certainly the guiding light through those trying times. The analogy I like to use is in one of these high conflict situations, when you have two raging seas together, they're going to get nowhere. If you have two standing lighthouses, there's going to be no problems. But in this situation, one individual had to be the lighthouse and the other one was a raging sea. And that's kind of how I saw myself, and I still am, and I will always be just steady, calm. I'm always going to be here. I'll always be safe. Because those waves, it's like the seas. They sometimes are calm and sometimes are raging. But as long as I remain to be that lighthouse for my guys, that's all I have to be. And that was drawn from you giving your advice. The parallel parenting, without a doubt, was one of the key points that really helped me get through this trying time.
Do you remember how old your boys were when we started?
I think they were 7. They were 7 or turned 8.
So they're in high school now.
They are, yeah.
It's quite a long arc, right?
It feels like a lifetime ago, but talking with you, like bringing these memories back, is like, holy shit, that was not long ago. But yeah. There's a lot of stuff that's happened along the way, and your tools have continued to help the process, because even out of court and everything's done and said, that storm never goes away. And like I said, sometimes you got calm waters, and most of the time the seas are a little rough, and then you get the crazy times.
So I think the long game mindset with this is really an important piece, because in these high conflict situations with some of these high conflict personalities, it doesn't go away totally. There's these waves, to use your metaphor, just keep crashing up against the shore from time to time. There's a big swell and there's a big wave, but understanding that that's coming, and having done what you've done and establishing those skill sets, it allows for that consistency for your kids, that sense of their stability in the instability, right?
Yeah.
And it is a long game. And I think for the people that I've worked with, like yourself, that have understood that, the outcomes for their kids is so much better. They've got the sense of I've got somebody behind me. There's a different attachment. And I think in speaking with you, and I'd like you to speak a little bit more about what's happened with your relationship with your boys, and that sense of where they show up in your relationship at this point as teenagers in high school.
Well, they're teenagers in high school, right? everything I do, 100%, everything that I do is for them. I've always put them first. And I like to think we've got a really, really good, close connection. I will hear stories from them about their friends. And they're very open with me. We have a very open communication and a relationship. I think looking back, and had I not learned these tools, I don't even know where it would be, because our relationships, and dealing with two 14-year-old boys in their first year of high school, it's a challenging time for them. There's boundaries that are pushed.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as they know that I'm never going to change, I will always be who I am. I'm pretty stern with the rules, but I'm also really flexible with what they want to do, things that they want to do. But they know that the boundaries are here, and you don't want to go outside of those boundaries because there's punishment. And I think setting forth those boundaries and them knowing where the lines are and what happens if they go outside of the lines is key. It's funny because they have an older brother and sister that I did raise for about 10 or 11 years. And unfortunately, when their mom and I split, I lost communication with both of them. And I wish them the total best, but just seeing the decisions that they've both made have not really been the wisest. And the last thing that I want these two to do or see is using that as a role model, or that is something. So as long as I can maintain who I am and they know that I will always be here is key.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Charlie, because this is the place where, as a single parent or as a parallel parent on the other side of this, you had the opportunity to parent the way that you knew needed to be parented. And I think we helped you a little bit with that through the classes and what the work that you and I did together. But, the notion of strong, solid boundaries. And I know you enough that the word that you used in terms of punishment was not the word that you would have chosen. It is a consequence. There is a piece there of if this, then that, right? So,
Sure.
Yeah, and when there's boundaries and there's consequences on one side, and I think you've seen this, and if you want to comment to it, you please do, but the kids don't kick back to the other side because there's no consequence or there's no boundaries. They kick into the place where there's safety and boundaries, and they get feedback for their development, and they can cognitively start to understand what life and relationship really is about for trust, right?
I agree. The analogy of the wandering aimlessly without having boundaries can lead not only a kid but an individual into a path that they didn't realize that they were headed into. I'm not sure if I'm really addressing your question, but when we as adults do something wrong, there's a result for our action. And
right.
As a kid, they need to know the same thing, because inevitably they're going to be faced with challenges, and especially in high school, there are things that kids are doing, and both of them have told me that they went away and decided not to do something because they knew it was wrong. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in the other household, I don't know what the boundaries are. When I was helping to raise the older two, one of the challenges that we had is we would set a boundary, and then the mother would remove that boundary. Wait a minute, that's not really doing much of help. So
it's not a boundary.
Right. I mean, it's a threat,
mm-hmm.
and threats are useless. So I don't know if I'm really answering
No,
your
you did.
question,
Yeah.
but it's critical, you know, it's critical for kids to know. I mean, and if you keep moving that boundary further and further and further away, they're going to continue to cross the original line.
Mhm.
So it's important to keep that and to stay firm with it.
Yeah.
Prime example, Sunday, one of my boys has got a limited amount of time on his phone because of grades and missing assignments. And I was like, oh shoot, should I just give him an hour? No. Tomorrow we reevaluate their GPA and it increases their screen time or decreases their screen time. He's going to realize that he's earned that additional time, and it's going to be cherished more than just, hey, okay, cool, you did this, here, I gave you an hour. So,
Yeah.
for what it's worth.
Choices, right?
Absolutely.
Boundaries create choices.
Yeah.
Right. Nice. Anything else you want to add here, Charlie? I mean, I really appreciate all of this piece that you put in here.
I really, I mean, I think I just really want to say thank you. You know, one of the most trying times in my entire life was fighting for custody of my boys.
Yeah.
You know, and at that point, I would have thrown anything into it, and being able to speak with someone like yourself and going through your classes and doing our one-on-ones really it calmed the fuzziness and the angst inside of me. It brought everything down to where I could use my intellect and correct decision making on doing the right thing. And I mean, for that, man, I really got to thank you a lot. I glean more out of what you provided, and you as an individual, you're a great guy. I mean, you know, we don't hang out, we don't drink beers, we don't go fish, but you're still a good dude, and I really want to thank you for not only helping me, but I guarantee there are thousands of other people out there that you've helped, and for that, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. And this is why I do what I do, and it's really my pleasure of having you in my classes, in my practice, and I know that you are a part of other groups and you keep pushing this stuff forward. So thank you for that too.
Absolutely. Keep doing what you're doing. And thanks again, man.
All right.